Native Americans are not characters in westerns. They are not some old tale or an inscription in stone. They are Diné, Paiute, Hopi, Ute, Shoshone, Goshute, Zuni, all the tribal nations of Utah and America. And they are still here, still strong, and their story is still being written.
That is my good buddy, Aaron Millar, giving you a little taste of what you're going to hear in this special episode today. He is the host of a new podcast series. It's called Utah Life Elevated. It's a 3-part documentary podcast that takes you on an unforgettable road trip through Utah, which is an incredible state to explore. I know that from personal experience. I'll share a bit more about that today. Aaron is the host of this series, but the real stars of today's episode are the Native American guides who help you discover some of their rich history, stunning nature, what it means to be Native American in the modern day, and insights into their culture like this.
There's stories that are just wanting to be told by the landscape. That's where us indigenous guides come in. I'm sure these plants are like, get walked by all the time. They're like, hey, I'm right here. Then when we come there, they're like waiting for us. They're like, okay, guys, look at this plant here. We really acknowledge these plants. Back home, we personify everything in the indigenous culture. We got male and female plants out there. We got male and female rain. We personify our homes. We give them names. Again, that's why I'm really cautious when I approach other homes, because there's somebody really prayed about that home and named it. It's really somebody's family. It's part of their family.
Let's get into it. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, what's up? It's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. As I mentioned at the top, got a special episode for you today. This is what we call a feed drop. We're taking an episode from this new 3-part documentary podcast series, Utah Life Elevated, produced by my friend Aaron Millar and my friends over there at Armchair Productions. They make some incredible shows, and what I love is Aaron actually travels to these places. He interviews people in person, and you really get that feeling of being taken somewhere through an audio journey. And in this case, you're taken to a state that I love, a state that's always been near and dear to my heart, Utah. I've had the good fortune as a traveler to have explored many parts of Utah. One of the parts that Aaron is in this episode is Monument Valley. And the landscape of Monument Valley, if you don't know it and you can't picture it in your head, it's this iconic scene. You see these dramatic red rocks coming up out of the desert. You've seen it in countless old westerns and in more modern movies like Forrest Gump. If you remember when he's got the long beard and he's running through the desert and you see that beautiful backdrop in the back, maybe that rings a bell. Well, I'm bringing up Monument Valley for 2 reasons. First of all, at the end of this episode, I had one of my favorite travel memories, just a brief, 10 minutes, but it was just a magical memory. I want to share that with you at the end. But also, I think Monument Valley is a good place to start, symbolic of what you're going to hear in today's episode, because you are going to get past the glossy image. You think about Monument Valley on the big screen of Hollywood. And Monument Valley is actually in the Navajo Tribal Park, run by the Navajo Nation Park and Recreation. If you want to get close to the land, you need to do that through indigenous eyes. You need to take their perspective. And this is hugely important as travelers. If we have the opportunity to visit a place where we know there's history and culture from indigenous folks there, we need to make an effort to learn about that, to discover that, to acknowledge that, and to really kind of get a bigger, broader perspective. And that's why I chose this episode, because I do think that is important. And also, we have so much wisdom to learn from others. And that's one of the big things that I came out of with this episode, is just some new perspectives and ideas to consider, new ways of looking at things, and also getting that sense of travel, wonder, being in a place. And then again, put your headphones on, turn it up, sit back and enjoy, because you're really going to be taken somewhere today. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Of course, we will link to this episode and the series in the show notes. Stick around on the back end. Again, I'll leave you with that little travel memory I want to share from Monument Valley that I experienced, and a powerful Native American proverb, and a couple other things. So I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Bullets. I'm a member of the Kaibab Band of Paiute Indians. Tonight, I'm just going to share a little bit with you my Southern Paiute culture through stories and songs. And these songs that I'm going to share with you are probably hundreds and thousands of years old. You'll never hear these songs anywhere else but here. So this first song, it's called The North Wind Blowing. Quail, my quail, mena, quail, my quail, mena, yana yo, yana yo.
Maiku Yate, hello and welcome to episode 3, the third part of our elevated Utah road trip. My name's Aaron Millar, I'm a travel writer and the host of this series, and today we're going on a journey in search of indigenous perspectives. We'll be speaking with members of the Southern Paiute and Navajo or Diné tribes, listening to music under the stars of Monument Valley, stepping into traditional hogans, and hearing stories that have been passed down through generations. But before we begin, just a quick note on terminology. The term Navajo has become the most commonly used name of the tribe, but it was actually given to them by the Spanish. Their traditional name, and what many tribal members call themselves, is Diné, which is often translated as the people. And for that reason, we'll be using Diné moving forward. So we're going to begin our journey with a song. Daniel Bullets of the Southern Paiute tribe is performing for us beside the crackling embers of a campfire on the outskirts of Kanab in southern Utah. Stars are sprinkled across the black sky above us like grains of shimmering salt, and beside us, orange flames wash the dilapidated boards of an old Western movie fort in a warm glow.
My people were a simple people. Simple meaning that in our songs, it was just a few words about something that inspired them. Like that song I just sang, The North Wind's Blowing. That's all it is, the north wind's blowing. We didn't have houses. We didn't live in one spot too long. We was always moving. During the wintertime, my people would try to get to the Grand Canyon that lived in this area because the snow got as high as these poles up here. The song says, I'm going to where the rocks are warm. I'm going to where the rocks are warm. Don't pay wa sena na sena, don't pay wa sena na sena, don't pay wa sena na sena, don't pay wa sena na sena.
This canyon has been the filming location of numerous westerns through the years. And as we sit and listen to Daniel sing, the irony is impossible to miss. For many of us, those films were our introduction to the West, the stark loneliness of the plains, the severe beauty of rock and scrub, gunslingers, cowboys, and blue skies as far as the eye can see. Westerns only capture one layer of the story. Like the red rock walls lining this canyon, Utah's history and culture stretches back far further to the people who first lived here, the ones who went where the rocks were warm. And that's why we're here, to learn to see the land through their eyes, to gain an indigenous perspective, and in doing so, perhaps deepen our own perspective too.
We're at a village that was built approximately around 500 AD, and it was occupied for approximately about 800 years.
This is Lewis Williams of Ancient Waves, an indigenous-owned tour company operating in Bears Ears National Monument, a few hours away in southeastern Utah. He's guiding us down a short path just off the road that leads to an ancient village site at the heart of which is something called a kiva.
A kiva is a church. It's a sacred place where the people that inhabited the area would gather and pray and conduct ceremonies. So in each village, there's several kivas. So religion was key, to the sustainability of the village. And we see rocks stacked that were brought here. We don't see any big boulders nearby. So that tells you that these people had to bring these rocks from a distance.
Yeah.
That shows me that it was very communal. It was very organized and a lot of hard work.
Could you describe it? Because for people that don't know, they might expect like a house or a building, but this is actually built into the ground.
Well, the circular room in the ground, I can relate to that going back into the earth. Indigenous stories of how we emerge from the earth. And this is what it mimics. I was taught how to maneuver around these landscapes by my grandparents, my grandma, my uncles. We always approach these places with caution. That's very key, because these places, we consider them inhabited still. That's why we got to approach very cautiously. That's what grandma taught me, and that's what helps us as guides now. It's really spiritual, and really it's mentally lifting. How I conduct my tours, and the reason why I'm sharing all this with you, is I'm trying to stay on my equilibrium, which is my Hózhó. It's the balance. It's the Navajo word, Hózhó. And Hózhó is my mental state, my physical state, spiritual state, and nature all embedded into one.
This concept of Hózhó is fascinating. It's also one of the central tenets of Diné culture. According to most definitions, Hózhó goes beyond what we might think of as a balanced life. It's deeper than that. It touches upon the fundamental beauty of living harmoniously with oneself, others, nature, and spirit. And Lewis is taking us further down the trail to a very special location to see if we can catch a glimpse of Hózhó for ourselves.
So I'm looking off the trail and I notice this tree here. This is called a juniper tree. You guys see the berries on it? If we harvest them and let them dry and beat them, they'll be referred to as ghost beads. The intention is to keep the Hózhó, keep the negative energy away. So again, Hózhó, these plants are about helping you. The cedar, the needles on the juniper, very spiritual too, keeps your mental state in a good state. I remember Grandma and Grandpa at home in the mornings, first thing they did, put cedar on the stove and they emit smoke and they would fan it and spray. And that's one of the best smells in the world too. It's like, oh my goodness, and it's comforting. Get that energy out of here, shoot, go on, it's all the energy. Hózhó, it's a good day, All these plants remind me of goodness, as I walk by. That's why it's so awesome to be out here in nature. Out here, it teaches you how to take care of yourself out in the world, really.
What's so cool is, as we're walking with you, it'd be easy to miss all this stuff, and it completely changes how you see the landscape.
Oh yeah, there's stories that are just wanting to be told by the landscape. That's where us indigenous guides come in. I'm sure these plants are get walked by all the time, and they're like, hey, I'm right here. Then when we come there, they're waiting for us. They're like, okay guys, look at this plant here. We really acknowledge these plants. Back home, we personify everything in the indigenous culture. We got male and female plants out there. We got male and female rain. We personify our homes. We give them names. Again, that's why I'm really cautious when I approach other homes, because there's somebody really prayed about that home and named it. It's really somebody's family. It's part of their family. So,
do you think it makes it more powerful in some way to name it? Why do you name your home, for example?
When you pass on stories, longevity, you got to pass on these stories to your families, and it's got to have a name. That's what I'm trying to learn out here. The Bears Ears landscape is broad, and I've been out here since just 2012. That's a fraction of my lifetime, so I'm still learning a lot out here. I'm learning about the Navajo names of these places. I have friends that are Pueblo. I learned Pueblo names too. The more I come out here, the more I connect, and the more I'm more appreciative of nature, you know. It takes care of us. Everybody depends on, you know, the sun, the seasons, water. It's very important. It's all about Hózhó. Out here, we can smell all the flora. We can hear all the birds. We can feel the cool breeze. We're up in the high elevation, about 6,700 above sea level, so we got the cool air. And right now it's fall season, so we got changing leaves right now. And this landscape is home to a lot of old animals that have been living here for so long. So that's what we do out here. We connect with nature, and it doesn't really matter where you're from. I like to tell everybody you're indigenous because, you know, you guys all have ancestral roots. You know, everybody in this world. Hózhó is balance. You know, we got to live amongst each other in balance, and the Bears Ears region brings together all these people. So there's a balance that's being created with the Bears Ears National Monument, and so it's a privilege to be here.
The air is crisp and fresh, the sun warming our backs as we walk. Around us, juniper trees cast blue shadows on the desert soil, and tiny lizards scramble off the path to hide among the rocks.
A lot of these trailheads lead to archaeological sites. I always tell my guests, all from the trailhead all the way to here is archaeological. There's so much stories that just radiate from the ground and the structures and the rocks.
Oh wow, we've just come to the edge of the canyon here. It's spectacular.
Oh yeah, this is a unique view. So we're at Cave Towers right now. We're standing right next to some structures, some cave structures erected around 500 AD. And these structures are here because right over here, Aaron, if you look just several feet over, this is a natural spring.
Oh yeah, you can tell because it's so lush when you look down there.
So this is the reason why the people lived here. So these towers we're looking at were actually storage units because this water, you know, is very scarce. We're actually looking at a place where they could have dammed water, and what they would have had was a check dam, man-made built dams just to begin a reservoir. So this would have been the place where people would have gathered water, stored water, even irrigated water to their places where they would have farmed. Because the people lived here were farmers. They were very knowledgeable about the changing of the seasons and farming techniques in this arid, dry climate. And that's what I see with these towers as well. I know it's a big city because I'm looking at all these structures. What really is fun about being out here is putting the pieces of a puzzle together. And the puzzles are just laying out here right now, and you put them together, you start to get a visual of how communal they were. Several hundred people. It reminds me of how life continues. It's a cycle. I remember my grandpa and my grandmas, they would come out here, they would just close their eyes, you know, and really connect and listen.
Lewis tells us how every morning his great-grandmother would greet the day by running towards the sun, how she would pull her drinking water from the cool depths of the earth, how she would end her day as the sun set. That too, he says, is what Hózhó is all about. There is a Diné ceremonial prayer called the Beauty Way. In beauty I walk, with beauty before me I walk, with beauty behind me I walk, with beauty above me I walk, with beauty around me I walk. It has become beauty again. In our world of night lights and pharmacy receipts and bottled water, it's easy to forget that. But as I look out across that canyon, the remnants of ancient ways on either side, a lush valley where people once gathered water within, it's impossible to ignore. We say our goodbyes to Lewis and drive an hour and a half south to the towering Red Rock Mesas and Desert Buttes of Monument Valley Navajo Tribal Park, a place sacred to the Diné people, a place where their history and Hózhó is literally carved in stone.
It's a little bit rough.
Okay, holding on. As you can hear, we're in the backcountry of the park. And that's Harold Simpson, our Diné guide, who's taking us past the popular lookout spots and Western movie sites to show us the real, living Monument Valley. Oh my gosh, look up there. That's spectacular. That's a huge arch.
They call it the sun's eye.
The sun's eye.
Yeah.
You see why?
If you go out there where the boulders at, you can see the eyelashes.
All right.
You don't see half of it here.
Let's go. The rock formations in the park are named after what they resemble and what they signify in Diné mythology. Rain god mesas, thunderbirds, the bodies of long defeated monsters frozen in stone. So we're right underneath what's maybe the most spectacular arch in the whole of Monument Valley. It's called the Sun's Eye, and it's so clear why it's an eye, because the red streaks from the rain that's washed that iron oxide down has created eyelashes, and it's perfectly shaped like an eye. And I bet if you get here at the right time, the sun comes in the middle, and that's the pupil, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's beautiful petroglyphs I'm seeing here of animals, deers, bighorn sheep.
They are dated between 13 to 1400 AD, most of the ruins that you see here.
You could almost miss them. They're so perfectly blended into the cliff face. But the more I look, the more I see. The antelope are grazing with their young. The horses are running. Ethereal figures emerge like ghosts. It's amazing how well preserved they are. Like, you look at them and they're absolutely sharp and crisp and clear. To think that this was carved 500 or more years ago is astounding. How would they have carved them?
They use bones, they use arrowheads and things that are like that. They're a little bit more harder. These are sandstone, so it's easy to edge into it. Petroglyphs are the one that are edged into using the sun varnish or the desert varnish coating on it, and it kind of stands out a lot more that way. And then we also have pictographs, the one that are painted on the walls using urine, bloods, and all that. They're more of shallow areas and shaded areas, or where water doesn't run through it and all that, so it stays on the rock formation longer than it expected and so on.
What do you think when you look at this, like, why there's this urge for all of us humans to, like, imprint something of ourselves in our imagination?
I think it's just because it tells a story. There's a lot of petroglyphs throughout the Monument Valley and throughout the Southwest and all that. Doesn't matter if there's cliff dwellings or anything like that, but they're just spread all over the place, and people just tell their story that way as well. Yes, even throughout Monument Valley, there's so many areas out here that are just carved with a lot of petroglyphs and has smaller meanings and so on. Yes, it kind of tells you that there's people before you as well.
Kind of puts you in your place a little bit. You know, we're here now, but we're only passing through, right? And there's going to be hopefully people in hundreds of years looking back still.
Yeah.
Wonderful. But there's not just ancient history in the park, because the descendants of the people who carved those petroglyphs are still here. Not just as tour guides, but actually here, living in the backcountry, tending sheep, running to the sun each morning. And in fact, Harold himself was raised right here, just a few minutes from Sun's Eye Arch.
I was going to school, I guess, more or less with my grandparents. They're teaching me everything about Navajo cultural traditions and everything, the language and so on. And then just doing a lot of activities with them, horseback riding, rounding up cattle and tending sheep and goats and branding them and so on. Living out in Monument Valley, it's off the grid. There's no electricity, no running water. Everything has to be transferred in, like drinking water from Gouldings. We have to use 55-gallon barrels to transfer in, or for drinking water, for washing dishes, for cooking and feeding the water for the animals and all that. Since it's off the grid again, there's no heater out here. We use a lot of the wood-burning stove. So 100 miles from here, BLM property from Bears Ears, we transfer all our wood hauling for the winter that we brought in. There are 14 families that are living within Monument Valley Tribal Park. They still have their grazing permit, allows them to have livestock again, horses, cattle, sheep, and goats. They chose to live that lifestyle, living off the grid. And then some of them, they would like to live in a smaller community, But in order to do that, you had to cash in your grazing permit for electricity and running water in a 1 acre lot. But majority of them, they want to still live out in the countryside. In my younger years, my grandparents, they were really into medicinal plants and medicinal herbs and the seasonal plants that we had and so on. But the younger generation, they have no clue what's going on out in nature right now. So we have to really educate them if they want to be a part of it.
So as we're talking, I've just looked over there and I've seen a couple of hogans in the field there.
That's the Yazzie family that are living out there, yes. They're my cousin to my mom. And then we have another family that lives right over here, and then they also have their livestock as well. And we're probably going to stop right there. Biga.
This is a beautiful place. Is this similar to what it would have been like for you growing up, Harold, in a place like this?
Yes, this is an in-law family, a family that got involved in that. He passed on, but his wife and his kids remained here. She became very famous to this area. Her name was Susie Yazzie, and she passed about 8 years ago of over 100 years of age. And this was her homestead and all that. Right now, her siblings are the ones that are taking care of it, and also her grandkids are taking care of this area right now.
The 14 families who stay year-round in the tribal park live in hogans, the traditional home of the Diné. Mud-plastered, dome-shaped structures that rise from the ground like an extension of the earth itself.
So we have two different structures. One is called a male hogan, the other one's a female hogan. The female hogan is, again, an extension from Mother Earth and all that. A pregnant lady, her belly resembles of a hogan. So we rest in a hogan at nighttime. Our grandmother, our mother, our sister takes care of us in there. And that's where the mother's setting is, the monarch way of life in there. They take care of us, feed us, clothe us, and outside, that's where men comes in. That's where our responsibility is, taking care of horses, cattle, sheep, and goats, and so on. And that's the cultural way of doing things, and that's how we educate little kids and how to be raised up in a hogan setting and all that. So yes.
Are we allowed to take a look? Is there any?
Yeah, we have this hogan over here.
Okay, amazing. Hello. Hi. How are you doing? Thanks for letting us come in. So this is a beautiful building. So you were describing, Harold, how it's built, but it's these circle concentric cedar beams here. It's absolutely stunning. How do you make this?
Very carefully.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell.
The posts that you see there, the 9 posts, 2 of them parallel with the entrance of the doorway, and then the rest around it, representing the 9 months of our pregnancies and all that. So, and then from there, this is pretty much like a cubing of a nest of an eagle, upside down, and put it up there and all that. So the east openings is always the wound of the hogan, metaphorically the wound of a woman as well. So when you walk out here, you're born into the sunlight, the father, and then when we enter it back in again, we pretty much lay ourselves to rest in here or be fed and all that, clothed and all that. So we're into our mother's womb again and so on. And that's the concept of it and all that. So the east is always important for it's always facing east. You never get lost that way. And then the south, this represents the birth of a child, a wet we call it. And that's the teenagers on the southern part of it. We call it Jakedo Jake. And then we have the west side, and we call it the Hastki, Astana, where the 2 women and men gets married together and all that. So this is the more teenager getting into their menstrual cycles and all that. So they're being taught. Grandma over here, Sani, grandma and grandpa, their knowledge and wisdom all these years as a child to this there, they pass it on to the younger generation over there again, and before she goes to rest. And that's where the concept is and all that with the hogan as well, the circle of life and so on. So when you pass, they pretty much lay you down over here. They close the door on the east and then break an opening towards the north so your spirit can continue into the spirit world.
Yeah, it feels like a really powerful place. I love how there's story and meaning and depth to it.
Yeah.
And this is a traditional rug weaving loom, I guess would you call it?
Yes.
Can I ask, what are you doing there with is that a spindle? I'm not sure what.
A spindle. It's spinning the wool into yarn.
How did you learn to do that? It looks very, very difficult to do.
I pretty much self-taught myself. So just asking a lot of questions on how it should look, how it should feel. It just takes time.
She's very modest about it. I tried it so many times. Every time when I stretch it, it breaks.
Yeah, I was going to say. Because it starts quite like, you should just showed us where it begins, which is like this big sort of bushy, massive wool, and now you have this like perfect thread that you're creating on there.
It just takes years to practice and all that, like what she's saying.
So you're kind of a third of the way through this rug here. How long does it take you to create a rug like this?
So this one's my grandma's. Mm-hmm. She did have a hard time to record the amount of time that it took her to finish it. So preparing the yarn to finishing the design. So it will take her around 4 or 5 months to complete this.
4 or 5 months for the rug. It's really a work of art. And how do you choose the designs? This is a beautiful design. You have the kind of red and white and black patterns, and then it looks like you have a person or a couple of people that you're
these ones are dancers.
Dancers, yeah, of course I see that now.
There's no pattern sheet or like a blueprint to follow. These designs, they are from memory. You're just putting whatever you're thinking of into this one size of a rug.
Wow. And when the designs are from memory, are you taught certain designs, perhaps by your grandmother, or does any design sort of pass down, so the traditional designs?
Yeah, she learned how to do this one from her mom.
As well as the rug Marilyn is working on, there's also braided grass baskets, beaded jewelry, painted pottery, clothing. The designs are beautiful, but they also signify a deeper harmony. For here too is Hózhó, a connection to nature through the materials painstakingly sourced and used, a slowing down through the intricacy and skill of the process, a balance in design which must be realized uniquely, like the Hózhó of life itself, by the weaver herself in every stitch and thread. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. I really appreciate it letting us come in and learn about some of the art that you do. In the time we've been inside the Hogan, the sun has sunk lower on the horizon, setting the red rock towers of Monument Valley ablaze and stretching the shapes of grazing horses into long shadows. We get back in the car as night begins to unroll its dusky purple blanket and the families of the park settle down for the evening. Later, we'll head deeper into the backcountry. But first, there are some harder stories which need to be told.
For Navajos, in their history, there's something called the Long Walk, which is very similar to kind of like the Trail of Tears for the Cherokee.
This is David Libert from the Native American restaurant Black Sheep Cafe in Provo. As he talks, his turquoise jewelry glints in the light, paying homage to his Diné heritage.
Forced removed from their land, I believe it was back about 1862, 1863, where Army, government, generals just kind of saw this land. They knew westward expansion was happening, and so they tried to remove both Navajos and Apaches from their land and kind of put them in an area where they thought no one would really want to settle. And so they first started removing Apaches from their land and then took them there. And then afterwards, they started gathering up Navajos and kind of taking them there. And it's, for Navajos, I know it's about, I want to say it's like a 300-mile trek for them that they just forced them to walk. And the general who was over all of that was General Carleton. He is very harsh, and he had been working with Kit Carson. He actually implemented like a scorched earth technique with the Navajos, started burning houses, upending all their crops and fields, and removed pretty much all the Navajos from their land. There were probably a few that still remained a little free, but majority of them were finally brought to what was called Bosque Redondo, or Fort Sumner is where they were brought to. You know, Navajo, they're very known for their agriculture, being able to cultivate and create vegetables, food, and whatnot, and they weren't able to do it there. It was just barren land. Every time they attempted it, just nothing would take. And so, as a result, a lot of them started to perish. They had a lot of these crops, and One that they had was actually a peach orchard, which a lot of people didn't really know about, like middle of Arizona. I think they had close to, I want to say it's like 5,000 peach trees down there. With Kit Carson, when he burned everything and like he removed everyone off the land, the Navajo said, like, we could forgive him for going to war against us, we can forgive him for imprisoning us and even burning like some of our grain and whatnot, but we cannot forgive him for destroying our peaches and our peach orchard.
When the Diné were forcibly relocated and their crops were scorched, they were made to survive on meager rations of flour, salt, lard, and sugar. It was from these rations that their famous fry bread was born.
It can be interesting because it can be either looked upon as good or bad, because I think a lot of tribes look at it as more as like a symbolism of colonization, where others look at it as more as like a symbol of resiliency and kind of survival.
It's a delicate dichotomy that extends far beyond food. Young people like David grow up in two worlds: the modern America of sports teams and shopping malls, and the Native America of ceremony and tradition.
When I got to the school, I had long hair. I had almost longer than my shoulder. My hair was down to my back, and I wear traditional hair bun.
This is Larry Holiday, a tour guide in Monument Valley and a local Diné community leader. We're speaking with him outside the historic Goldings Lodge on the outskirts of the park.
And when I got to school, it's called Kienta Boarding School. When I got there, what they did is they cut my hair. They cut my hair. And one of the reasons why they cut my hair was, they said, Larry, you're going to be part of the academic. You need short hair. I think that was their excuse, because all the boys had very short hair, like a crew cut, like military cut. That's how I'm starting to be afraid what's going to happen next in that school, in that dorm. So that's how I was experiencing.
This kind of story is all too common. Throughout the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries, Native American children like Larry and Harold were shipped off to boarding schools and made to assimilate to the predominantly white American culture of the time. Hair was cut, outfits were changed, names were altered, and customs dismissed.
I was starting to move from my hogan to school, where the first time you just touch the wall and click the switch and there's a light. Or just go into a restroom and just turn on a knob and there's the water. And the thing about it is, you go, wow, what's going to happen? Everything was surprise, being a rookie in modern society. And then at the same time, your mind is still back at the sheep camp, still back at grandma. How's grandma doing? Even down to your sheepdog, how they're doing, up to your best horse, who's feeding them, But once you're in the school, once you're in the dorm, your cousin there, your neighbors there. So we talk. We talk about how you got here, what should we do, And there's a lot of learning process, from starting to talk English, starting writing, communicating with people that you don't know.
Straddling these two worlds is a burden which all Diné, all Native Americans carry. It appears in their personal lives, in questions of identity, and crucially, in the fight to keep their language alive. In 1980, 93% of Diné spoke their native dialect, but in 2010, that number had dropped to 51%. It's a huge problem, but perhaps even bigger is the fight to protect the land itself.
A lot of natives out there don't have water pipes, but they're ready to run oil pipes. So that, to me, it's like, doesn't make sense. My grandma doesn't drink oil. My grandma drinks water. Again, it's Hózhó. If I think about it, it's all about Hózhó, and that's not balance, you know? I mean, shoot, that's imbalance. Oil drilling up here is it would be hard, difficult, and it would take a toll on the landscape. So, I mean, again, Hózhó, that would cause imbalance.
In the 20th century, millions of tons of uranium were extracted in Monument Valley and other places in the Navajo Nation by the US government and private companies. Today, Diné living near abandoned uranium mines have a significantly higher incidence of neuropathy, lung cancer, and fibrosis, which are all believed to be linked to the severe contamination of their water sources from those mines. And while some tribes, such as the Standing Rock Sioux in 2016, were able to fend off environmental contamination, many have been forced to watch as their sacred lands were drilled, drained, and destroyed.
If you understand your language, if you respect the people, and then you'll also respect the nature. Like for us, when we say to respect the earth, we say Mother Earth. And when you say Mother Earth, why you say Mother Earth is you have food, it gives you. The water, the natural spring, it gives you. If you take care of the Mother Earth, it take care of you. That's where I like to share to our visitors, and there's a lot of the ancestral rooms. There's a lot of the our ancestors that left evidence behind. That's what we like to share with them, because some of those pictographs that you see on the wall by our ancestor, by the ancestral, it's very similar to Navajo sand painting. That's why we don't disturb what's been left behind. We leave it the way it is. That's the teaching from our grandparents.
In our stories, the bear's ears protecting this area. So the bear is actually facing, overlooking these 4 sacred mountains that the Diné believe that is our ancestral homeland. He's actually overlooking all these mountains, these sacred mountains. And all these years, he's been protecting this area. So protection-wise, me being out here, I'm here for a reason, I feel. Now it's time for us as Diné, 5-fingered people, to do our part and protect this area too. Every day I come out here, it's just something that I was taught, growing up. I don't consider it a job. It's my Hózhó. It's my balance. I reciprocate it now. All these years we've been talking about the bear's ears protecting us. The bear is protecting us. It's our turn.
Being Southern Paiute is out here in the landscape, interacting with what you have around you, being respectful of things that you don't know, the plants, the rocks, the insects, the birds. I try to tell my people and teach my people, to be Southern Paiute is to be out there on the land, because we come from this land that we once utilized and helped and not necessarily managed, but nurtured. And doing that not only helped us, but helped everything that was out here as well.
That's really beautifully said. And I'm wondering, with that in mind, for visitors like us that are maybe coming from a different country or a different part of the States, when you share your songs and your culture, what would you hope to inspire in the people that listen and that you share them with?
I guess the main thing, to answer your question, is respect. Not only to people, but to where you're at. They'll do that in return. You go out camping somewhere that you've never been, you're going to be quiet, you're going to look, you're going to listen, and in turn it's going to share things with you, the sunrise, the smells, the animals that come around. So when people come to my traditional homeland, respect it, and I'll respect you back.
And what is perhaps fundamental to all this, before politics, economics, before conservation even, is the struggle of Native American people to simply be seen.
People that have asked, where I come from, and just telling them, I'm Native American, and times that I get told, oh, I didn't know they still existed. It's yeah, we're still here. So, sometimes in the moment, it just kind of takes you aback, takes you off guard, and you just don't know how to react, or you try to keep your composure and not get a little heated about it.
Native Americans are not characters in westerns. They are not some old tale or an inscription in stone. They are Diné, Paiute, Hopi, Ute, Shoshone, Goshute, Zuni, all the tribal nations of Utah and America. And they are still here, still strong, and their story is still being written. And there's no better place to discover that for yourself, to see it all come together, the history, the pride, the struggle, the future, than under the stars of Monument Valley. 1,000-year-old petroglyphs on one side, families still living the old ways on the other. And in the center of it all, hope, beauty, Hózhó.
Voila! Yat is the proper way of saying greeting. Yat Ya means heaven. At means it exists in our language. Heaven exists, everybody. My name is Harold Simpsons, no relation to any of the Bart Simpsons, O.J. Simpsons, Ralph Simpson, Jessica Simpsons, Melanie Simpson. There's so many Simpsons out there, no relation to them and all that. So, other than that, my introduction to you guys will be but ancestral. Torchini washinke the chini that should show us the chanel or out the nenschla. Tabin diskedona shadow my toho geroshi has lynch mustando should che ya. Betty Simpson, though John Simpson, out the nenschla. This is how we introduce ourselves among our elderlies, because they don't speak English at all. And so by understanding where your clan, who your mother, your father, your paternal, maternal grandparents are, where you're from, where you originated, who your grandparents are, all of that in sequence, they understand perfectly who you are. As Navajo, we live in a matrilineal society, monarch. So Batani is my grandmother, my mother, and my sister. So when I say monarch, grandmother, mother, and daughter, my mother's happy that she has a daughter. So she can pass on her wisdom and knowledge down to her, and hoping that her daughter can have grandkids and so on. And so they can pass on that knowledge down to the next generation as well. We got Cody here. Oh, Cody is going to be dancing for us and all that. He has his regalia on and all that, so he's not going to be dancing on the table. He'll be dancing around the fire and all that. So as Native American, people always ask us, when do you guys feel more at ease with being Native American? For me, when I sing, when I talk with elderlies and so on, when I speak my language and all that, that's when I feel most being close to nature and all that, Mother Earth and Father Sky, and then the spirit that goes all the way around. The first dance that we're gonna do is called a intertribal song. If Cody's finished dancing and all that, you guys can clap or cheer or whatever you guys wanted to say. You're more than welcome to do so. Okay. Okay, we're gonna conclude this next song with a dance again called Sneak Up. Pretty much more like a thunderstorm. You guys know what a monsoon is, right? Yeah. Monsoons, these cumulus towering cloud comes over the horizon and can blacken the sky, an afternoon sky like this. And so once it happens, it brings in a lot of lightnings and thunders and rain. And so when it happens, most of the Spaniards came out here. A lot of the Native Americans fell in love with the horses. So they went to the horse corral, and then they tried to get they go into the corral, and then the first lighting that comes down, the second, third lighting, they know exactly which horse they want to grab. They grab their mane, they jump on it, and then by this time the horse gets all riled up and all that, make a lot of noise. But the thunder just canceled all their noises out. They open their corral gate, and they stampede out of there. Nobody back in the corral or anything like that, and they go their ways. Only thing that they leave behind is the hoof prints. So eventually the rain stops, and the cloud moves over, the sun comes back out. All they could see is a damaged horse corral, no horses, no trace of the horses, which way they went and all that. So this is how Native American gained their horses. So we're gonna ask Cody again if he can shapeshift himself into a stallion this time, right? Okay, single ladies, hold on to your horse. We got a stud in the house. Okay, sneak up.
When seen through indigenous eyes, the land comes alive. It is the keeper of stories, the giver of myth, the beat of a drum. It is running towards the sunrise, drinking cool water from the earth, sitting in stillness with the setting sun. It is all these things, threads woven together like a rug, intertwining, becoming stronger and more beautiful with every generation. But more than that, the land is who we are, all of us, but especially it is who they are, as Diné, as Paiute, as people whose roots reach as deep as the juniper trees in the desert and as high as the stars in the sky. And it is in the land that we find the harmony we've been searching for. With beauty before me I walk, with beauty behind me I walk, with beauty above me I walk, with beauty around me I walk. It has become beauty again. This is Hózhó. Ahyahi.
That means hello in Navajo.
Yate, she Lewis Williams in a she.
Yate, she, Ferguson Cody on she.
I'm Larry Holiday. My clan is Hózhó, yucca fruit that sprungs out.
Be betwardni nishlin. Chippewa Bushishchin.
Ashin Shlon Toch and a Bushichin, Toricini dash chi, Locarine national.
Betahni, that is folded arm, covered the clan.
Aro Topashni Ajir Dashache. Aro Natlani Dashanale. Lady Tiehinde Nasha.
Late Sakis, I is a Nasha. Jamasan Dashache, George Clyde or Rose Clyde, Aaron is a Nasha. Sakijo.
Torichini, the word that streaks out, Kiaani. And that is House Tower Clan. That is my clan. And that's the way we introduce ourselves. And Akehet. Akehet means thank you in Navajo.
Thank you for joining me on the third part of our elevated Utah road trip. Remember, you too can experience everything we've done in this episode. Just go to visitutah.com for ideas and inspiration on booking your next trip. Or if you're interested in booking this whole thing as a package with lots of other cool stuff built in from the rest of the series, you can do that too. Just go to americansky.co.uk and search up Utah on there and you're going to find it, or just click the link in the show notes. We built the whole itinerary from scratch based on everything we did, and let me tell you, I had an awesome time, and I think you will too.
There you have it. Want to thank the team at Armchair Explorer once again for partnering with us for this feed drop, and I am so excited to have brought this show to you today. Don't forget, you can check it out if you search anywhere, Utah Life Elevated. You can listen to the rest of the series right there, just 3 episodes, and you'll get a wonderful overview and take a little bit of a trip through Utah, one of my favorite states. And I talked about this at the top. One of my all-time favorite travel memories, a couple of them happened in Monument Valley. First of all, I remember sleeping on top of a van. This is when I was working as a tour guide for one summer, and waking up in the middle of the night. This was the first thing. And the moon was just hanging out between the rocks of Monument Valley, where those rocks dramatically rise up out of the desert. The moon was just kind of chilling there. It was so beautiful. And then waking up some hours later and witnessing the sunrise and the majestic colors, just spectacular, really almost spiritual experience. So incredible. And then later, getting to go out into the desert with a Native American guide, and they took us to this special spot where the rocks, there was like almost like a natural amphitheater, and the rocks sort of leaned up at an angle and had us all lean against the rocks and close our eyes while he played a song on the flute and just sort of mesmerized us with this beautiful song, almost like a snake charmer, right? Just like snake charming the tourists. But it was just such a beautiful moment, and I felt honored to be able to hear that song, to be a part of that, to be welcomed in onto their land, and just to have that experience. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's these types of experiences, they really stick with you. This happened some couple decades plus ago, and I could almost close my eyes and be there, how powerful it was. So definitely encourage you to, again, as we talked at the top, to explore these places when you have the opportunity, to get under the skin of them through the indigenous modern experience, through their history, through their culture, to have a better understanding of these places. So that's it. I will leave you with two other quick things regarding this particular series. First of all, if you want to book this exact trip that you hear in the podcast series that Aaron shares, you can do that at americansky.co.uk. They have a Utah holidays self-drive experience that you can book. And of course, you can also go to visitutah.com if you want to learn more about what there is to see around there. But the main thing, if you were vibing with this, go check out Utah Life Elevated, the podcast series, which we'll link to. I'm going to leave you with a Navajo or Diné proverb. This one I found online, and so, I can't verify it, but it says it's a Navajo proverb, and hopefully I'm citing this right. So here it is. Walk tall as the trees, live strong as the mountains, be gentle as the spring winds, keep the warmth of the summer sun in your heart, and the Great Spirit will always be with you. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.